I guess I got interested in running for politics because of my involvement with the Newfoundland Labrador Nurses Union, where I sat on the executive for some 18 years at the provincial level. And I was actually the first provincial secretary-treasurer from Labrador, or from anywhere outside the overpass. So I wanted to prove that it could be done from Labrador, it could be done from anywhere. And we did that, and now we have a secretary-treasurer that's in the Northern Peninsula, so I'm very pleased with that people now see that's something that they can do. And through being involved with the Nurses Union, I recognize the impact that politicians, that democracy had and has upon policy, and specifically around healthy public policy, and the need then for to have voices there that had the knowledge around health and had healthy public policy to try to make a difference. Because if you intervene at that level, the upstream approach, then you can affect what happens lower. And so really that's why I got involved in running for politics. I tried my hat first at the very first run in a by-election for provincial Liberal Party. Wasn't successful. I ran in 2 elections since then for the provincial Liberal Party. Not successful, but learning every time. And then decided that I wanted to still be involved, and that didn't seem to be a road that was open to me at the time. That being involved at the local level in democracy would give me an opportunity, I guess, to get a better understanding of what happens as we move the chain of government. So I ran in the general election for council. That'll be 4 years ago this September, and received the highest votes for council, and so therefore was the deputy mayor. And through the jigs and the reels, our council has changed face many times over the past 3.5 years. There's only 2 of us left on the council that were elected at the beginning. Everybody else is in through by-elections because we've had a lot of changeover in council. And so the former mayor, Janice Barnes, who had served on municipal council for a number of years in many positions and was a fabulous leader in her own right, and still is. She moved on to an executive position within government, and in that position wasn't able to continue as the mayor. Council decided that I would assume that role, and we would move through the process of the deputy mayor resigning from within council and then run the by-election for a councillor versus run the by-election for a mayor, recognizing that would mean anybody who wanted to run, who was already on council, would have to resign. So that's how I came to run for municipal politics, and certainly it has been an enjoyable experience. It has to be a labour of love because it's volunteerism at its finest, and it's pretty much become in the past 1.5 years a full-time job. Trying to find a balance, in fact, between an unpaid full-time job and my business that I run and my family life and my professional life is a challenge, but it is worthwhile, and I am enjoying it. I guess my family had a business while I was growing up. We used to own a small grocery store, roadside convenience actually in Torbay, and we sold everything from bare to nails, and bologna that you would slice off by the pound, and some like the thick and some like the thin, and everything in between. And so I grew up as a child in that environment, worked the cash, seeing the invoices, rolled all the coin, dealt with the shoplifters, and also I guess it's the beginning of my social conscience, because my dad would often run tabs for those in the community long before the days that there was food banks. And so Dad, when the business closed, there was thousands and thousands of dollars left on the books, in fact, that he never ever recuperated because people just couldn't pay you. But he would never see anybody go without. And long before food banks and associations that were providing toys for children, I can remember Dad doing that and me going with him as I got a bit older on Christmas Eve and bringing gifts to families in the community that he knew otherwise wouldn't have any on the Christmas tree. And Christmas for my dad was always was special, and I guess that's what he's passed down to us. And there's not a day goes by that I don't think about him and everything that I do, because he passed away now about 6 years ago, yes, and you know, and I know that he's with me every single day yet, right? And then I'll get a little bit emotional with that, but so certainly, you know, that was part of that social conscience led me into the leadership roles that I've assumed, and also I grew up in the hospital setting. I have chronic disease, being asthma and eczema. Back in the early days, it was so bad that in fact I was hospitalized most of my life, from the time I was a baby until probably around age 16, 17, when new medications came on the market that allowed me to actually get treated at home. And so I learned a lot in that environment, being there every day and having friends that had leukemia who die and you pass on, and other friends with cystic fibrosis and other chronic ailments and terminal conditions, and seeing the compassion that the staff had for the individuals, and getting to know that firsthand is probably what led me into nursing, I would think, right? Although I always say I would have been a veterinarian, but I'm allergic to all the animals, because I love that too. I had horses and dogs and all that growing up, and loved all that life. You know, so certainly I had a lot of role models in my life between my own family. My mom always worked. Again, that was non-traditional in the time when I grew up, because most mothers were stay-at-home at the time. So the fact that she was out working was a different dynamic in our family in comparison to others. And so I've had lots of tremendous role models coming through in my family and also in the health system, and got to see different sides of people and what stresses can do and play on families, and that played a role in who I am today for sure. And because of that, I've always wanted to be involved. Right. I've always wanted to be involved, and so my earliest involvement in any kind of group probably would have been, I was the editor for the Newfoundland Pony Association when we were trying to save the Newfoundland pony. And
wow.
back in that day, you had to do everything by hand. So it was hand-drawn pictures of horses on the front covers, and picking magazine pictures out and tracing them out by hand and coloring them in and putting together a magazine for the Save the Newfoundland Ponies. So that was
and
my
how old
first
were you then?
I was probably 14 or 15.
Wow, Karen.
Right. And involved in the association back in those days, and then from there, like I say, when I went into university didn't turn out to be what was right for me, so I went into nursing school and loved the camaraderie of my classmates and the close-knit community that we had, and stayed in residence with them and had some fabulous learnings being part of that group, and some really close friendships that have continued even to today. And always was involved in speaking out, and I guess because I grew up in the health system and grew up with a dad and who believed you had to be out there and involved if you cared, if you wanted to make change, that I was the one always intervened. So if I seen bullying, I would be the interventor, right? I would always be the one to intervene in those kinds of things, and it just seemed like the natural thing to do. So really, I guess my leadership comes right from the time I've been a child all the way up through, and I was lucky enough to have tremendous role models.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing with your dad.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. He was the armchair politician. I guess when I think about my political life, I can remember coming home. I was about in grade 3, I guess, and watching the elections. And we watched every election. And Joey Smallwood was on stage at that time in grade 3. And we had great chats around politics from the time I was as young as age grade 3 that I can remember, and so always, I guess, got to learn about the impacts of democracy on policy, and hearing it from Dad and learning from that process. So while he was never involved in any one political party, he was certainly an engaged citizen,
right.
And it taught me the need to be engaged, and that in fact it is our responsibility to be engaged and to be the leaders that put forward what the solutions are and what they need to be for people.
How would you describe your leadership style?
I'm inclusive. I'm probably, a lot of people say I think well outside the box. I believe there's a solution for any problem. We just have to find it. I guess that in that way I'm very non-traditional. I don't necessarily go by what has been in the past. I believe that we need to change as we move forward. We need to be more innovative. So I try to incorporate all those kinds of things into my leadership style, and I like to hear everybody out and try to find consensus, if at all possible. Consensus building is really important, and sometimes the reason we don't get there is not because we can't, it's because we don't have enough time to get there.
Right.
Because on some issues which are controversial, the timelines are such that often you have to make a decision very quickly, and so you can't always build to that point of consensus.
Right.
And so that's what I found. So I find if you have the time and the willingness to listen and try to find a better way, it's often there. I guess I actually try to engage everybody, not just women. Women, certainly play a key role, and I guess we've been lucky in our municipal council that in fact at the beginning half of us were women around the table, and our town manager is a woman, and we have great council staff that are predominantly female that are giving information to us on a regular basis. So, and in our community we have some great role models for women that are strong leaders. So to me, I want to try to engage everybody, because the biggest disconnect I see in our society today is that a lot of people are totally disengaged. They believe everybody who's involved with politics is corrupt and that their voice doesn't mean anything. And I'm trying to change that person to person, door to door as I go, because if we don't get people to engage again, I'm worried for what the future brings for our country and our province. And we're better when we're all working together and using each other's diversities and challenges and information to come to a better solution. And so to see so many people disenfranchised and disengaged really worries me. It really worries me, and that's what I work on. And so I really try to reach the youth, and I love working with youth, and these are our leaders today, and it will be our leaders of tomorrow. And so I'm really always trying to reach out to youth and trying to get them more engaged and understanding the process, because I find there's not a lot of understanding in that age group at all. And what they're feeding upon is just their appearance, saying that there's no point to be involved, and anything I say doesn't make a difference, and why bother to vote, and that worries me. Saying, but we needs to be larger than just a few elected people. It needs to be everybody.
Right.
And so we need to get everybody engaged. I think the biggest challenge that I'm hearing from people, and I'm talking to lots of different people in all age groups, men and women and youth, is the challenge around that balance that I talked about earlier, around a lot of people today are so busy in their work and their family lives, with two spouses working and children involved in many, many activities, and youth even involved in many, many activities, because the youth of today recognize their resume building is important as they're moving forward to the careers that they want to have. So they're being challenged to have great marks in school, to have a broad-based volunteer background, and to also have a job so that they can show that they're responsible. And yet we expect them as well then to be involved in the volunteers in a bigger way. And I know that's the biggest challenge most people say is the time balance. And I guess for me, I totally understand that, but if you don't make it happen, if you don't carve out that portion of your schedule that you're going to volunteer and donate to your community or to a group to make a difference in your community, it'll never happen either. And so what it is for me is I don't have very much TV time, I don't have very much game time, those kinds of activities, and maybe my house is not the cleanest house in the neighborhood. I know it's not. That's one of the things that's attracted me to Labrador City and Labrador West, and why I've stayed here with my family all these years, is because that sense of community is so strong, right? If you have someone who's in need here, be it for a ticket to get out because they got some medical condition, to someone who's going over in great challenges in their family life, everyone is there to support them in some way, shape, or form. And that sense of community and that sense of thinking outside of just the immediate family is what makes our community a fabulous community. And I don't want to lose that, right? I don't know. I guess I've looked at the leadership styles of everyone that I've witnessed and I've observed, and I try to take the bits and pieces that are good of those leadership styles that I see as good to try to enhance my own skills. And so no one person per se stands out at all, but certainly they all had a part to play in who I am today. You know, you're not going to start at the top. You start within some kind of a volunteer capacity in an organization, and from there you'll grow your understandings and your strengths, and you'll find the place that best suits you. So, well, we have elections coming up this fall for municipal council, so everyone I'm speaking to, I am certainly encouraging them to put their name forward. A lot of people are intimidated by the process, and I think that there's a lot of changes we can make in the process, but it's going to take time because unfortunately a lot of people, I guess, are bought into the party style of election campaigning. And while I partake in that, I don't necessarily buy in all of it. So for example, I think for municipal elections, to level the playing field, we should eliminate the signage on lawns because that costs a lot of money to buy. And so if you're not an individual who has money, who's able to fundraise money, you're not able to participate in that fashion. But not only for that reason, but also because it's not environmentally friendly. You have all of these signs that at the end of the day are useless, that often are found blowing down our streets or in our back ditches, and that end up in our landfill. And it's expensive to deal with them, and they take a long time to break down for the environment. And so there has to be a better way of doing that. I think that with our virtual world now, that we can do virtual signs and be just as effective as lawn signs. And then also, I would like to see at the municipal level, and we're investigating it, but I'm thinking that right now it's not something that's permitted under the Act, but we are investigating it. I would like to see us offer one newsletter that would go out to all households, listing all the candidates with a set amount of words and a set size picture so everybody's on the same field. And the reason I say that, I'm not taking it as something brand new. In the nursing union movement, when we put out for our elections, we do that, right? In the nursing union and in the association, when people compete for a position, be it president or a Labrador regional representative, everybody's pictures go in, everybody has a set number of words to say why they're running, then that goes to every single member, and everybody has an opportunity to look at that and weigh them out, and to then seek them out if they want to have more information. And so rather than having 15 pamphlets arrive in your door, in your mailbox, I think one, which is standard, would be better for municipal elections. I'm just not sure if that's possible at this time.
Right.
You know, and again, it's I'm probably thinking well outside the box because a lot of parties, a lot of people that are involved with parties wouldn't think that way, right? But I think we need to change democracy.
Yes.
And that's one way of allowing the senior citizen who's on a fixed income, to the student, to the single mom, to the family who is struggling to put anything on the table to be able to participate in our democracy today, is to level the playing field. I just wish that we could get more people involved, right? That would be the thing. I think that we've swung the pendulum so far to the other way now around me and what's in it for me, and that we're having a hard time bringing it back. We need to bring it back to the center where people recognize you need that balance, and the only way we're going to do that is by having more people get involved and demanding it, and demanding that change to happen. And that can happen, and needs to happen if we're going to have a better country, a better province, and a better municipality. So I really hope that we can get more people out there and involved, and that their diversities and their challenges in their lives, because everybody is a leader. I mean, I'm just here speaking to you, but it could be anybody as far as I'm concerned. Everybody has the capacity within them to be a leader, right? It's just that I guess I grew up not being afraid to speak out. A lot of people are afraid to speak out. I never had that worry, and that may have been because of